Hello, welcome back to the Mike Thrace podcast. You are here with your host in sunny, kind of resurrected Gold Coast. Yeah, it's a bit of a new morning, a new beginning, a new state of awareness, conscious. Well, we had some really big storms the last few days. I'm here particularly in Robina. And Robina is a bit of an energetic space for me, an energetic space of safety, and particularly for the Uber work that I do, it's often the kind of this midway point that I'll not just stop for lunch, but it's like a grounding space. And that's what the theme I want to talk about in this podcast today. Without going into too much unnecessary detail, I want to focus on energetic vibration, not only of land and spaces, but how once we change our energetic vibration, in different ways and means and speech and frequency, our experience of reality changes. So yeah, let's talk about Robina a little bit. It's funny why I feel drawn here is before I came back from Melbourne to Gold Coast, I had some family friends of ours who were living on the Gold Coast, friends of my mother and my grandfather. I feel they were close to. And when they were talking about places to look to live on the Gold Coast, and this is about a year ago when I was looking, they mentioned Robina. And I remember even 2 years ago when I was living in Currumbin, which is further south, closer to the New South Wales Queensland border. I remember I didn't have a car at this point. I had broken my Achilles only a few months earlier, and I was very much in a recovery mode. And I borrowed my partner's car at the time, and I went for a drive to a couple of minutes away from me, the Robina shopping centre, in the car. And I felt this resonance would be the word, this energetic resonance with the place. So it felt already like this space of safety where my nervous system felt it was like it wasn't necessarily like the Camino experience where I'm in nature, or even where I live in Mawillamar at the moment, where it's very much a solitary nature-based experience. Robina felt like this good midway point for me, where it was reconciling both, the nature character, but also a place of abundance. It was a place where I could invest money. Like when I go for lunch, I'm spending money at Robina. I'm investing in the land, and quite often, if I'm struggling for an Uber trip, it's a place where I will go and I will get abundance in the land. And it's this interesting synchronicity with this idea of giving and receiving and energetic vibration in the land and space. I think the resonance that comes from when we move to a certain area, we feel drawn to an area, or we work from an area. And it's happened for me with other jobs as well, where I've often worked, and you might have the same experience. I've often worked in an area, in Melbourne, for example. I used to work in Ivanhoe through my first corporate job. Once I left that, I was working in the city, and I moved to Ivanhoe because there was this resonance with that frequency, that area, and it was a feeling of abundance. Robina has been similar, that it seems to hold that abundance. And it's, while Robina is the modern name for it, it's very much... I'm hearing the word archipelago, like in Florida, the archipelago. It's very much built on water, but it's very tree lined. It's very central to the Gold Coast, but it's also very much landlocked as well. It's really this like a mini city, but it's a suburban urban city that has an abundance frequency. And so when I'm in this frequency, I have a certain experience of reality. I want to match that frequency. I need to dress and speak and act within that frequency. And that frequency can change depending on how I'm feeling. And it's a similar thing with our own energetic vibration, which is the theme of this podcast today with the land and Robina and space, is my experience. And I'm hesitating a little bit to say it because I'm conscious perhaps maybe this will resonate with some people and maybe it won't. But my truth that I'm feeling aligned with is when we change our energetic vibration, we have a different experience of that same reality, a separate reality, as what Carlos Castaneda would say, or for Neville Goddard, when we assume the wish fulfilled. If we assume this state of fulfillment of whatever we're being called to bring into our reality, we were actually already matching the vibration that it's already here, it's already answered, it's already provided. And so there's therefore the bridge of incidents, there's the contrast of Abraham Hicks, there's the challenges, there's the shadow integration to match that resonance. So it's all about trying to match the frequency, like a magnet, match the resonance of whatever we're wanting to call forward. And Robina is this space for me that's helped bring in a lot more abundance and prosperity. I feel it's a little bit like, I've said this in a recent podcast, and I'm feeling a bit tired at the moment too. You can probably see it in my eyes. I'm going through this, again, another bit of the deeper soul growth, soul, kind of like a shedding of layers and stepping into a space where it's difficult to talk about vibration, experience really from a conceptual basis, because it doesn't really make sense. And as I mentioned in a previous podcast, words don't teach, experience teaches. And it's almost like when we leave reality, or we leave our customary space of habitat, we travel, for example, or we do begin a new job, new relationship, we have certain changes. That can actually foster this change of energetic frequency. But what I would more suggest, normally that what happens is it's the inner work, the inner energetic resonance that brings forth the external change. And we can almost yo-yo on that a little bit. We can kind of be swinging on that resonance. And there's work that's been talked about, a well-known book that would really summarize this in a very clear matter-of-fact manner is called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. And in this book, and I think he's also written a book called Power versus Force, he has what's called a scale of consciousness. And the scale is based on emotions, and these emotions all had a certain resonant frequency based on, I think we used kind of like a body testing type arrangement where they can measure the frequency of certain emotions, and so the lower vibrational emotions, of course, had a certain frequency, and the higher vibrations such as love and joy had a different frequency. So what this science was getting at, because it is a scientific type basis, but with somewhat of an esoteric perspective of when we let go of the energetic debris or stress or anger, which are these lower vibrational resonances, our natural energetic vibration, our base point, we could say, rises. As we raise our vibration, raise our resonant frequency, our collective reality, our experience of the same reality or a separate reality changes. And so that is the means of actual manifestation. That yes, we have goals, we have the vision boards, we have all these different matter of fact, we have the identity changing. But the identity changing is generally, and I talked about with Neville Goddard with the law of assumption, the identity or the wish fulfilled is ultimately bringing forward a different reality based on our vibration. But at the same time, it becomes really important to tend to that vibration, tend to that garden that I was talking about in the previous podcast. So it's a little bit difficult. Everything I'm talking about obviously it's intangible. It's not really, it can't be necessarily be described or felt. It's like the Tao Te Ching, the Great Way, the Eastern tradition of this teaching is that it can't be described or felt, but it exists in everything. Chi or prana, life force, energy. But ultimately what it is, it's somewhat our own energetic magnetism. And this magnetism can go up or down in different spaces and places, like here I am in Robina, and also within different people and relationships. So when we're moving towards a new goal or a vision or manifestation, or the bridge of incidents that Neville Goddard we talk about, the contrast that's helping create a desire to no longer play out old subconscious patterns, trauma stories, belief systems that don't really need to be there anymore, is we want to tend to this vibration. And like tending to a garden, we've got to cut out the weeds. We've got to focus the energy within ourselves. So it's an interesting exercise that we think we're trying to change the external others. We're trying to push forward that power versus force metaphor of Dr. David Hawkins, is rather trying to force things. We're calling our power back to get in alignment with what our energy is actually signaling to the universe. So we're working more towards how can we hold more energy within our own system? How can we being calmer and present in our energetic vibration? How can we be less attached to trying so hard, forcing so much, that we can align and attract what is really wanting to come forward in our reality, what our inner desire is wanting to do or wanting to feel or call in? And from that perspective, it becomes more a space of not doing, being. But this is the challenge when we're so geared to doing, to moving, to thought, and to even to not do something, if we're in a collective frequency that is perhaps below the set point of that scale of consciousness. It might be halfway up the point. It's kind of like a three-dimensional perspective of reality, where we're surrounded by people that have certain ideas about power and force and ethic and doing. And while they're much resonant and true in that experience of reality, when we're moving through certain shadow integration challenges and we're wanting to raise our vibration, ultimately we have to pull more of our own attention back within. And that attention is actually just literally calling. I say literally, it's literally in the words that I'm speaking, but it's more energetically, metaphorically felt, embodied by feeling our energy come back into our body. And that's the clear intention. And the more work we've done with our vibration, the more aware we are on our energy, how much we meditate, we practice gratitude, the more we can actually feel energy in our own body, will affect the success of how we call that energy back. Because we can say, I intend to call all my energy back from previous partners, relationship, workspaces, family, ancestral stories that limit my experience of reality. We can make that statement, but if we don't feel it to a degree, we don't believe it, we don't have the faith that it's actually resonant with that truth, its impact is somewhat scattered. But at the same time, our word is our wand is a famous book by Florence Scovel. Your word is your wand, your faith is your fortune. It's when we are more impeccable with our word, we have greater magnetism and magic to that word. Our word becomes more powerful. And so there's a trade-off. And this is where we're working with our vibrational set point. When we are raising our vibration and we're becoming more impeccable with our word, so when we fall off the scale, so to speak, we might have a difficult encounter, or we just kind of, whatever the reason, we might come into contact with a difficult person or a trigger. Yes, that can be an opportunity to witness the story and integrate what is basically the shadow, that reflection of that person that needs to be witnessed and healed. But at the same time, it will likely lower the vibration in that moment. And it lowers it from how much we give our energy to it. So this is the dance that comes with shadow integration, that it's witnessing, the ability to witness those lost parts of ourselves, which could be divested in people's situations, stories. What I just mentioned in that intention to call back our power. So we might not know where our energy is scattered and divested until we actually start practicing this. We practice meditation, we practice awareness, we put the phone or the TV away or the computer away, and we actually engage with our body, and we feel how much unease or discomfort is in our body. We can witness, okay, well, maybe it's because we're fragmented. We've got some sort of fragments, or we're holding on to other people's stuff, or our energy from a shamanistic or Reiki perspective is gone out to other people. So we call it back. So we practice calling it back through just bringing our attention within. And as we bring it more within, we can feel how much where we've actually divested it out. So it's a practice. It becomes a regular pretty to the garden type metaphor. But at the same time, no one's going to do the work for you. And it's really a strange experience. And I think we'll talk about this in the next podcast that I'm feeling at the moment, is as we practice this and we witness it, it's like this world that seems so real, so tangible, the metaphor becomes a lot more intangible and fluid. It can respond and change and manifest very differently just because we've worked on our vibration. So that, and from that perspective, we still feel like we want to get out there and change the people and the things. But it's almost like the more we practice this awareness, it's like doing a gym workout, you know. The more we add some weights to the dumbbells or the barbell, we work at this practice. The muscles feel sore initially. And so little things can come up in the experience of reality. But we build that, and we see reflections in the external reality. That it's the reality is responding to our vibration, how we feel within. And as with an exercise, a physical thing, we're not just practicing on our body, but our body is a big part of this. We're working with our identity. We're working with our perception of self, but our identity is only a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. Our identity comes from how much energy we hold within. And so the identity is fluid. Yes, it will be a guiding mechanism to what we want to see in our reality. But it's like breaking open the computer, changing up the wiring, and say clearing it out and saying, well, what if we're just already full, whole, complete already? And so we're detangling all the cords of the faulty wiring, and we're just willing to just pull back all those cords, all those stories, and just hold that awareness within. Thanks again for being a part of this. Bit of an esoteric one today. I feel if you're drawn to this content, I particularly recommend Prosperity Embodied, the Awareness Mountain. It breaks down the processes of initiation, integration, and embodiment that has really occurred through a number of years. And for me personally, I'm very much in the embodiment phase. I'm in the tail end of it. But it's like what I talked about in this episode, that what we find, and it's somewhat esoteric, our vibration can change based on the clothes we wear, the place we're with, and the people we hang around with and spend time with and invest our energy in. And sometimes that even is in text messages and content we're looking at online, which we think, they're not in person, but what we're eating and drinking. Whenever we're directing our attention externally, it has an immediate impact. It's like a thermometer of our temperature. And so as we change the thermometer on a heater or an air conditioning, the way we're directing our energy, or not directing, holding within, affects that measurement gauge. Bye for now.